You know, if I were to think about a superhero team known for its romantic subplots, the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles are not the first thing that would come to my mind. But the more I watch the 2012 incarnation of TMNT, the easier it is to see that, holy crap, this show is a shipper's wonderland. This video is part 4 of a 5-part TMNT 2012 retrospective, and in it, we're going to be talking about the 4th season of the 2012 show. In its entirety, but I thought I'd open with this because of how prominent that was throughout the whole season. But before I even think about it, we have to address the true elephant in the room with Season 4. And that would be Donatello, by his own admission, doesn't like retro games.
Now, old school games are stupid.
To rectify this grave error, I decided to partner up with Wanted Dead to be the sponsor of today's video. If you're hungering for an Xbox 360, PS3 era-styled hack-and-slash game, Wanted Dead might just be what you're looking for. The game is published by 110 Industries, developed by the team behind such games as Ninja Gaiden and Dead or Alive. The game is, as I said, made in the spirit of those kinds of shorter, skill-oriented games when today the focus of games is usually on large worlds and 200-plus hour-long campaigns. So something like this is refreshing. You battle your way through hordes of enemies and bosses in style with a katana and a pistol. Very reminiscent of the games I've spent far too much time referencing in my videos, and I guess I just did another one right now. The game is a challenging one that requires you to master the controls and combos in order to succeed, taking place in a cyberpunk-esque world with a 90s retro technological feel to it at the same time. So from top to bottom, the game feels pretty unique. And also, yes, a 360 PS3 kind of game totally counts as a retro homage, because those consoles are almost 20 years old. Don't look at me, I don't write the rules. Right now, the game is available with an impressive 60% discount. This fantastic offer is valid for PlayStation 4 and 5 until December 20th, but Wanted Dead is also on PC, Xbox Series X and S, and Xbox One. So if that piques your interest, you can head on over to the link in the description or pinned comment to check the game out for yourself. Thanks again to Wanted Dead for sponsoring this video. With that said, we may now return to your regularly scheduled programming. So to make sure everyone's up to speed, at the end of Season 3, the Krang were prepared to try another invasion of Earth until their arch-rivals, the Triceratons, invaded Earth, and with them they brought the invincible black hole generator that swallowed the entire planet. The Turtles and their allies were saved by a mysterious robot, Professor Honeycutt, aka the Fugitoid. In the last moments of Season 3, Shredder also killed Splinter. Season 3 just ended on that cliffhanger. Season 4 begins right after that in Episode 1, Beyond the Known Universe, where Honeycutt explains to the group they do have one shot to save the Earth and stop the Triceratons. They pull a Superman time travel maneuver by flying around the Earth at light speed to go back 6 months. Now they can gather the pieces of the black hole generator before the Triceratons are able to build it and thus save the Earth. This quest to find the pieces and save the Earth takes up the first 14 episodes of the season. A nice detail is how they changed the intro for these episodes. Unlike a lot of other animated shows, this one changed the intro quite often to reflect changes in the status quo, like Season 2 adding the new mutant enemies, and Season 3 adding the Turtles' mystic forest gear to the intro. Season 4 just makes a full space version of the intro, which I thought was pretty cool. Then they go back to the main one after Episode 14. But anyway, things get complicated for the heroes because they not only have to fight against the Triceratons and the obstacles that arise from collecting the pieces of the black hole generator, but on their first trip to another planet, the heroes upset a criminal that goes by Lord Dreg, and then he's after them for the entire space portion of the season as well. This is one of those 2012 deep cuts that I thought was really well done. Lord Dreg was the main antagonist of the final 2 seasons of the 87 series after Shredder and Krang were finally defeated and they wanted a new villain. It's been a pretty long time since I last watched those episodes, so I don't remember how this version compared to the original, but I do like this design of Dreg more than the original, fully capitalizing on his being a space bug, when the original played up the Lord element more than the alien bug part. One of the points of this crop of episodes is seeing the Turtles and crew going on all kinds of space adventures. By Episode 2, we get another rerun of the show's favorite thing, shipping. The Turtles end up fighting 2 Salamandrians, who are the same species as the Neutralizer enemy from earlier in the show, and I thought that was a cool callback, but when Raph became smitten with the female one that he gives the nickname Mona Lisa, is when I was like, seriously? I'd love to know what this show's obsession with shipping and romance is. Earlier in this retrospective, commenters had told me that they thought the human crushes of Leo, Don, and Mikey were all weird, but it was Raph's connection with Mona Lisa that felt the most earned and least weird. So I was curious how it was going to play out and see if I agreed. To keep this conversation as minimally awkward as I can, I don't know, it feels the same to me. The argument I often see made is that it's just bizarre that you'd have a mutant turtle human romance, and that's why it's better for Raph and this space alien. However, I fail to see the difference beyond aesthetics. Raph isn't a salamandrian, he's a mutant turtle from Earth. They're completely different species. I don't really care because this is the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. There's plenty of room for suspension of disbelief here, but that was why I was never really on the side of Don's crush on April being weird because of the turtle thing, because I mean, he's a mutant turtle that has the brain function of a human. And on that note, this April has psychic powers she got from aliens, so it's already 10 galaxies away from real life logic, so I think getting upset about it on a species level is just reading too deep into it, frankly. But on the other hand, I think the show does have an inordinate interest in this, and the execution isn't that great across the whole show. For starters, I already went into the fact that I thought the writers had the chance in episode 2 of season 3 to end the whole Don-April thing on a good note of Donatello realizing, after everyone trying to tell him this all series long, that he was in the wrong for a lot of that obsessive behavior. It might have been a nice moral lesson for the audience to learn, as it's a tale as old as time. But then the writers undid it mere seconds later and kept the love triangle subplot going with no resolution for the rest of the show. I just don't know what the writers were going for with that one. Then I also wasn't sure what they were thinking when they made Karai a brief love interest to Leo, knowing full well that this Karai was the true daughter of Master Splinter. To their credit, the subplot was completely dropped from then on, but since all of that happened in season 1, I just have to wonder why they even bothered. Then Mikey had the crush on Renette that lasted one episode, and I'm sure it will keep going when she comes back in season 5, but I haven't seen it yet, so I wouldn't know. But then midway through season 4, Karai has a new partner in crime named Shinigami, and then they gave Mikey a crush on her too that goes nowhere, being dropped in the same episode that it was introduced in. And then Raph has this thing with Mona Lisa that's relevant for 2 or 3 episodes of season 4, and that's it. Besides Donnie and April, all of these feel the same to me. Very surface level and gimmicky, done to advance the plot of the episode in question and little else. It just makes me wonder, did the writers find all this shipping funny? Did they think it was endearing? Did they think it was needed for a show about teens? I have no clue. But it is pretty interesting how the show seldom introduced a female character without a turtle having a crush on them that served no purpose to the story. Again, I feel like it is ultimately harmless, just funny to note how often it was done. It's been a very, very long time since I last watched the show, but Teen Titans was a similar kind of show, and I felt like that show's romantic subplots were handled a lot more carefully as they built connections over multiple episodes and provided resolution for them, and that would have been a good model to look at, if they felt like this was a necessary addition to the series. But with this being the second to last season, here's hoping it's the last mention I have to make of it. So anyway, it was during these space episodes where I was most curious how the pacing was going to be. In the previous video, I said I was most concerned about the Space Saga lasting 14 episodes. I just hoped it wouldn't be boring or go on too long. After all, the show dragging its heels has been my biggest issue thus far, however it was during this space arc when I had an epiphany. I think I was experiencing the show from the wrong lens. Sure, I vastly prefer the 2003 series' laser-like focus on pushing arcs forward, even in seemingly unrelated episodes, but I don't think the 2012 series is inherently doing something wrong. I think the show isn't trying to be like the 2003 series in terms of how it tells its story. Looking back at all that I've seen of the 2012 series, I think they just use arcs as the backdrop element. It's the thing that advances the series from season to season, but the individual episodes are meant to be enjoyed as comedy, action adventures where you get to see a variety of cool-looking mutants or space aliens, while one of or all the heroes go through a lesson in the episode that will probably be repeated ad nauseum before the show is over. Plus, it's also a 3D animated series, which means every background is a set that had to be 3D modeled, so therefore the farmhouse arc, or in the Space Saga, you'd want to get as much time out of these locations as possible to make sure the time spent building the assets was used to maximum effect. But it turns out, I was definitely onto something when I thought of this. In the comments of the last video, somebody told me that on an interview, Brandon Auman, the main writer for seasons 2 through 5, had talked about how Nickelodeon had discouraged the team from focusing heavily on arcs over standalone episodes. Which, like I said, more or less confirmed I was onto something and that this was how the show was meant to be enjoyed.
Are you, from a writing perspective, looking at it from, okay, what's the arc of the season, working your way backwards? Are you breaking it down?
Usually for me, it's it really depends on the series that you're working on. With TMNT, there was a real push with Nickelodeon, to make, the series, the season feel largely standalone. Episodes would feel standalone, but because, they just didn't know if they were going to air out of order, or they just like the idea of look, you just come into it, and this is just, it's a standalone, you don't have to worry about this giant arc, so they kind of pushed us away from any kind of big arc, although we still had big arcs throughout the season, if it was the rise of Shredder or, whatever it was. And then with Star Wars, it's to me though, that's always difficult because as soon as you get deeper and deeper into a season, there's always going to be, no matter what, arcs to it, and there's going to be things that happened previously that you want to reference. So, it's a balancing act of saying, okay, this is still kind of standalone, but still has to function in some kind of an arc.
The overarching plot was a background element that was still very important. So special thanks to that commenter who is called, Squidward Tentacles. I didn't know he watched my videos. But within the space arc is one episode I was really looking forward to watching. Episode 10, Transdimensional Turtles. In it, the 2012 Turtles are pulled into the 1987 dimension by a portal stick that Donatello had. It's a pretty jam-packed 22 minutes as the 8 heroes battle in the 87 dimension, the 2012 dimension, and go to Dimension X and even visit Turtle Prime, the comic book world. I was very curious about this episode because I wanted to see how it was going to compare to Turtles Forever, the finale of the 2003 series that I covered almost 2 years ago. Turtles Forever had a lot working against it, first because of how it didn't bring back the classic Turtles as voice actors and couldn't use the iconic music from the show, but then the way the world was portrayed felt more spiteful towards it than irreverent. So knowing there was an 87 crossover in the 2012 show got me curious how the execution was going to be. What I found fascinating about this episode was they pulled a lot of the same jokes at the expense of the 87 Turtles, like how they can't fight or how they don't use their weapons in combat almost ever, and how their world is cartoony and ridiculous. The 2012 Raphael even pulls the exact same joke the 2003 Raph did about how the initialized belt buckles was really stupid. The plot is also surprisingly similar to Turtles Forever, in that there's a plot to destroy the Turtleverse by first destroying these dimensions, but then trying to go to the source of all Ninja Turtles, the 84 comic world. But the main difference between the two is that you can tell these jokes are out of love since it does feel pretty authentic.
Where the heck did you get pizza? Give me a break.
For example, each of the 87 Turtles is characterized in an authentic way, instead of them all being a hive mind of idiocy like Turtles Forever. The original actors are back, and that adds a lot of nostalgia to the appearance, and the music is there too.
The Donatellos will disarm the weapon. Everyone else, take down that creep. Turtle power!
Whoa, whoa, whoa. Hold up with the turtle power for a second. You don't give orders to my team, okay?
Also making the jokes you'd expect, like 87 Raphael and 2012 Donatello talking to each other.
And you, Gappy, why do you sound so weird? Me sound weird? Heard yourself lately?
The one thing I could say I have against this episode, especially compared to Turtles Forever, is that I think it looks kinda cheap. The 87 world is done with this flash-looking animation that doesn't really look anything like the original series, when the art design was where Turtles Forever really struck gold. But that doesn't diminish the joy I felt watching the episode, as it also managed to be somewhat relevant to the plot. As it turns out that the 87 Krang, who was always trying to get back to Dimension X, is a member of the Krang species from the 2012 series, and he was banished to the 87 cartoon world a long time ago. They come from the exact same Dimension X, it turns out. Not that that has to have any impact on you while watching the 87 show, but it's a really funny way to tie the universes together. Also, this episode marks the defeat of Krang Subprime and leads to the Krang being defeated for good later in the season, so it's a story-relevant episode. One that ends in a funny way too, because the 2012 Turtles are pulled from Season 4, obviously, but then at the end of the episode you find out this adventure for the 87 Turtles occurs right before their cameo in Season 2. As that cameo is the ending of the episode and we see them fight Tiger Claw, as he said he battled the 87 Turtles when he returned a few episodes after Wormquake from Season 2. So that was pretty neat, and that was definitely a lot of words I just said, so moving on. Besides that, there isn't much else I'd like to comment on regarding the Space Saga. I thought these episodes were really good, as the writers made the Triceratons really tough enemies for the heroes to defeat, and the characters and their interactions were made really strong throughout the episodes. Seeing all different parts of the galaxy, including an episode where they meet Bishop in the past and the other Utroms in their mission to find pieces of the black hole generator. I liked this version of Professor Honeycutt, but I thought the 2000s version was a better integrated character across the 2 seasons he played a major role in. This version of Honeycutt actually built the black hole generator and needs the help of the Turtles to destroy it, but there isn't much to him or his relationships with the characters in the episodes he's in. But I did think it was funny how he'd occasionally beep at the end of sentences. Despite all their work though, the Turtles lose the black hole generator pieces to the Triceratons as they begin their invasion of Earth, but as you might expect, the Turtles are able to arrive and deactivate the machine with the help of their past selves, as Honeycutt sacrifices himself to destroy the black hole generator and the Triceraton homeworld. What was really weird was that there are now just 2 sets of Turtles and Casey and April in this new timeline. So what does happen is that the Honeycutt from 6 months in the past still arrives, and he takes the version of the heroes from the past and brings them on a trek across the universe, while the heroes that did just go on a 6-month space mission just take the place of their past selves in the original timeline. Hope the past selves don't mind never seeing their friends or family again, but the good news is they also managed to save Splinter in this episode, as Shredder is defeated badly enough to be out of commission for a few episodes. It was throughout the next crop of episodes where I realized that I don't think Shredder's army makes for a super interesting set of bad guys. I mean, they're okay, but with Shredder out of the picture for a brief period and the Krang being totally gone, you're just left with the heroes battling the likes of Tiger Claw and Bebop and Rocksteady, and I don't find these bad guys compelling enough for whole episodes at a time. But it is in these episodes where April finally becomes a fully fledged ninja and joins the team on pretty much every mission. Casey does too, but without the skills and superpowers that April has. Karai is trying to build her own Foot Clan in these episodes in competition with the remaining goons still loyal to Shredder. And that is when the show introduces Shinigami as Karai's ally, but beyond that, not much really happens in this crop of episodes. I liked the Bat and the Belfry episode. I'm kind of a sucker for parodies and homages to Silver Age comic books, and this one about Wingnut and Screwloose parodying Batman and Robin was really entertaining, as they come to life from the pages of a comic for an episode and have a wacky adventure with Michelangelo and Casey. In the final set of episodes, Shredder returns, only pumped with enough mutagen to turn him into the Super Shredder as a nod to Turtles 2. In hindsight, I feel like the Turtles didn't really get to battle with the regular Shredder much in this series. The biggest moments were in Season 1, but past that and a few brief one-on-ones, Shredder mostly fought Splinter if he ever bothered getting off his throne to begin with. But now the Turtles have to contend with this monster Shredder who still mostly goes after Splinter. I mean, seriously, Splinter cannot catch a break in this show at all. At the end of one episode this season, Splinter tries to take Shredder down into the abyss, only for them both to live through it, and Splinter falling like 1,000 stories and spends most of the next episode trying to survive at the bottom of an abyss. This episode has some pretty twisted imagery in it as Splinter sees hallucinations of the Rat King and finds his corpse at the end, but like I said, he managed to survive all that. But then there's this episode where April's superpowers go out of control because of an alien crystal she got from Honeycutt, and she got possessed and attacked Splinter at one moment. Like I said, he cannot catch a break this season at all. Though I guess Donatello had it worse because he literally got atomized in this episode only to come back at the end. Before the actual finale though, you get one last normal episode. I only feel like highlighting it because of the fact that it involves a space turtle called Toka arriving on Earth. During the Space Saga, Raph took its baby thinking Toka had died in a supernova, giving Raph a new pet turtle to interact with. Something about the Turtles having pets is always really cute to me, like Mikey having a cat is a franchise staple, but I think this version that's a mutant cat that got turned into Ice Cream is probably my favorite iteration. They managed to give Ice Cream Kitty a personality, and I always found it really endearing. But more importantly, I thought this was a cool way to do Toka. When they turned Dog Pound into Razar earlier in the series, you would obviously assume Toka was around the corner to complete the Turtles 2 homage, but they made Toka a space alien instead of a mutant, which is surprising. The main reason I'm even talking about this episode, though, is that Bishop is now Agent Bishop and is a liaison between the Utroms and the Earth by commanding the EPF. I thought that was pretty cool, though this Bishop can confirm is just not as cool as the original. He has a lot of the badass moves, but he usually gets taken down when the 2003 version almost never did and was always using these super creative fighting techniques. But that's neither here nor there. In the last two episodes, shit gets pretty real as Super Shredder decides he wants to just kill Karai and everyone else he stands against. He just tears through all the heroes in battle. At the beginning of episode 25, you get a scene that shows how far the characters have come. Splinter can sense that his time remaining is limited and preps Leo for being the one in charge of the family. This would be an emotionally resonant scene in its own, but they specifically call back to episode 2 of the first season, which is where you reflect on the journey thus far.
Do you know why you are leader of this team?
Yeah, because I asked to be. You said it wasn't because of my skills.
And I think I figured out why you made me leader.
Oh? Why is that?
Because you sensed inside me a true warrior spirit.
No.
No? Then why did you make me leader?
Because you asked.
That's it?
I said that only to temper your ego at the time. I knew even when you were a small boy that you would one day grow up to be the leader of this team. And when I pass on, to be like a father as well.
I also realized how weird it was to watch a season 1 clip after watching so many of the later episodes. You almost forget how much better the animators have gotten at their craft until you go back to the beginning and compare how the characters move and emote. Episode 25 ends with a big fight between Splinter and Super Shredder that you just have to imagine Splinter's going to win, because I mean, they already pulled the Master Splinter death scene in the last season finale, only for Splinter to get an even more painful demise being stabbed through the abdomen by Super Shredder and being tossed off this skyscraper and slamming onto the pavement. Like, goddamn. But it's pretty clear right away that there is no time-traveling Fugitoid to save Splinter this time. He's actually gone this time. His spirit tells Leonardo in the finale that it's time to end the Shredder for good. And I really like how the finale wastes no time. The Turtles, April, and Casey get the location of Shredder's secret shoreside home from Karai and raid it. Along the way, they fight many of the mutants they've been battling for the whole series, like Fishface, Bebop, Rocksteady, and Tiger Claw. Also, they reverse the mutation of Baxter Stockman in the process. It's just one action set piece after another, and I think it's great. Not 2003 Return to New York great, but it's a great finale episode with a fantastic battle between the Turtles and Super Shredder to cap it off. When looking at it from the lens of an intended series finale, I think it did the job just fine. I mean, the mutants I just mentioned seem to be defeated for good here, and Leo slices Shredder's head off after a one-on-one with him. It's really climactic and would have been a good ending for the show. I mean, the actual ending of the episode doesn't really say much besides, well team, we did it, and we'll do it again whenever evil comes back, but it's not like there needed to be a comprehensive ending. The bad guy is dead and the team is ready to face whatever lies ahead, knowing their master is with them in spirit. But yeah, this was not the last episode. This was intended to be the last season, which is why the Krang and the Foot are seemingly defeated here. However, Nick ordered more episodes while their next iteration of TMNT was probably in the pre-production process. So the show got 20 more episodes, and that was season 5. How that fares is the story of the next video. I'm curious to see it because TMNT shows lingering well past their natural expiration date is not new to the 2012 show, that's for sure. However, that doesn't mean it's destined to not be good. It's just a matter of watching and finding out. As for season 4, I think it was really great. It delivered on everything it set out to do, it followed up on a dramatic cliffhanger in a really great way, it explored the universe and managed to produce interesting episodes from that, it was climactic, action-packed, and concluded the arcs of a lot of characters in a really effective way. I guess you can say it was my favorite of the bunch thus far, but I don't know if I really have a favorite. Through the ups and downs I've been discussing, I just think this is a really solid and, more importantly, consistent show. But before I get into conclusion territory that's better saved for next week, I'll just wrap the video up. Season 5 is the next video and my last video for 2023, so I hope the people watching it are excited for it. In the meantime, I'll say what I always do. You've seen everything. Go outside.